Pursuant to Standing Order 106, subsection 2 of the committee's meeting on the study of the mandate and priorities of the Secretary of State responsible for international development, I would like to officially welcome our witnesses for the first hour, Honorable Randeep Sarai, Secretary of State, International Development, from the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development, Christopher McClellan, Deputy Minister of International Development, Leslie Norton, Assistant Deputy Minister, International Assistance Partnerships and Programming Branch, and Alexandre Levesque, Assistant Deputy Minister, Europe, Middle East, and Arctic Branch. Up to 5 minutes will be given for opening remarks, after which we will proceed to rounds of questions. And I now invite Mrs. Sarai to make an opening statement of up to 5 minutes. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. It's an honor to be here. I served on this committee before, so it's good to be back. Bonjour, hello.
Hello.
Here today, I'm pleased to join you to discuss my mandate and how our government's priorities for international development are evolving. As you all know, we are operating in a challenging geopolitical landscape, which is affecting every aspect of our work on the international stage. Multilateral organizations are under tremendous strain. Over the past 5 years, we've seen important development gains stalled or even reversed. Globally, progress in alleviating extreme poverty has been nearly stagnant. The global food crisis is worsening, and humanitarian needs remain worryingly high, particularly in Gaza, Haiti, Sudan, and Ukraine. Major aid donors are cutting their budgets and shifting their approaches to development assistance. At the same time, new donors are competing for influence, following approaches that may not be in line with Canada's values. Global South countries are calling for reforms to multilateral organizations to allow for more equitable representation systems, and Canada is supporting the ongoing reforms of the UN and humanitarian system to make them more agile, efficient, and effective. I took on my new duties as Secretary of State for International Development this spring. My mandate is to act on behalf of Canada to foster sustainable international development and poverty reduction in developing countries and provide humanitarian assistance during crisis. But the conditions under which I must fulfill this mandate have changed dramatically over the year, and it's clear that Canada's development work and that of traditional international assistance donors needs to adapt to meet the new reality. In discussing these issues at the meeting of G7 development ministers I chaired this month, my counterparts and I agreed that this moment calls for urgent reforms. We agreed that it's imperative to rethink our approaches to tackling extreme poverty, promoting economic growth in developing countries, and responding to humanitarian crisis. For Canada, this will mean working to maximize the impact of our dollars, ensuring tangible results, and better connecting what we do to strengthening Canada's economic security. International development assistance can be an investment in shared prosperity and stability. Canada has a strong and proud history of doing just that. We're a leader in putting gender equality at the core of our work because evidence shows that it's not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. Canadians expect that their taxpayer dollars advance sustainable results they can relate to, and I'm making it my priority to achieve this. As I work through what we need to change in our existing approaches to meet the new era, I'll be particularly focused on the following elements. First, I will work to better articulate how our international assistance concretely supports Canada's need to diversify its trade relationships. This will mean placing greater emphasis on supporting economic growth, trade readiness, and private sector engagement to build prosperity and resilience in developing countries. It will mean continuing to build and strengthen enabling environments for growth, while ensuring that most vulnerable are not left behind. My goal is to ultimately contribute to Canada's long-term, mutually beneficial relationships in developing countries and emerging markets. To achieve this, we will embrace new financing models, digital solutions, and locally driven approaches that make good use of our development resources, increase our impact, and deliver sustainable outcomes. This includes expanding our use of innovative finance tools, such as blended finance, to increase private sector investment, ensuring every taxpayer dollar goes even further. Notre gouvernement veillerait.
Our government will ensure that FinDev Canada our development finance institution works to scale up more private sector investment in developing countries.
Integrated approach that connects our trade diversification and international development imperatives so that we can strengthen enabling environments for trade, reduce private sector barriers, help create jobs, and enhance supply chain resilience. Second, I'm acutely aware of my role in helping address risks such as climate change, infectious diseases, and food insecurity. By addressing these, we help create the conditions for global stability and resilience, which is in Canada's benefit. Nous continuerons et travailler avec nous.
We will also continue to work with partners to advance gender equality, respond to humanitarian crises, and protect the environment.
New sense of focus and purpose into what we do and how we do it. It is an opportunity to use Canada's international assistance as a valuable resource that helps tackle global challenges, build strong partnerships, and drive meaningful progress, all while ensuring Canadians stay at the core of our work. Thank you for your time. Merci.
Thank you, Honourable Sarai, for your remarks. I will now open the floor to questions, beginning with MP Rood. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Minister, very much for being here today. Minister, my first question, I think everybody's paying attention to the news right now with the hurricane that's hitting Jamaica right now, and it's about to devastate that island. What relief is Canada planning, and what humanitarian efforts are the Canadian government preparing to provide?
Thank you. Great question. We have been on alert in terms of Hurricane Melissa, if I'm right, the name. In terms of the preparation work and others, my deputy and ADM have both been apprised of that. We have a center in Mississauga that is ready to with goods to be shipped out as we need them. There is some funds that have already been deployed. We've been working with, it's called Sedima. So we're working with Sedima, and we're waiting for their requests, and whatever need that'll be needed in the region, we will be supporting them.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think all Canadians' thoughts and prayers are with Jamaica right now for people there. Changing channels, Minister, we see 8.4 billion Canadian tax dollars being spent within the foreign aid envelope. Much of it is going to projects with names like Beans for Women's Empowerment or gender-just low-carbon rice value chains, or being funneled through organizations like the UN or the World Bank. What return on investment or outcomes can Canadians see coming from this that improves their lives?
Look, there's a lot of programs, over 2,000 programs that the ministry administers. Great programs. Some you may have issues with their names, but their intent is great. When in context for the Greening Our Rice, the Gender Just Right, it's a project that Oxfam aims to promote low-carbon rice value chains in Vietnam. It increases women's participation. It's developed through broad consultations with government donors and civil society. And it increases production of more sustainable rice, and it increases the livelihood of small rice producers, particularly women. And on that note, Vietnam's is one of our top trading partners in the ASEAN, and it's a major supplier of our affordable rice. So these are mutually beneficial programs. If we can improve the lives of local farmers, increase women's participation, increase their yields using less water, more climate resilient crops, we also, as Canadians, get a more affordable base for our rice, so which is an affordable starch and much needed supplement, I guess, or food source for many Canadians. Similarly, with I think you mentioned their international development banks and others, we support them, and now we're doing it more innovatively by giving them capital, using blended finance means and others, so we can attract private capital to help build some of the infrastructure needs in those countries, from ports to storage facilities for food supplies and others. And these are the type of things that we're doing to help make I guess, a mutually beneficial, but also a resilient economy for the states that are the recipients.
Minister, I did mention the UN, organizations like the UN and the World Bank, and again, I guess Canadians are asking with these such programs where we're giving, for instance, $22 million to this project on gender just low carbon rice value chains, or however much the amount is, and it's going through organizations like the the UN or the World Bank. What kind of returns or outcomes can Canadians expect from that improves Canadians' lives? Is there any?
The example would be, in that case, you get a more affordable rice shipments to Canada. You get an increased yield in the rice in that land. I mean, our goal when it's international development is not a dollar for dollar return to Canadians. It's to help and maintain that the world is more financially secure. There's less poverty. With that results in less migration from those places. It allows more for peace and security in a more stable world. So a lot of our relations, including, if you see right now, Prime Minister Carney is in the region. He's making more trade agreements, and this is a soft power that helps work with nations like Vietnam, in this case, where they see the effect of Canada has been there for them and their development and bringing up the needs of women in their regions and increasing their farming yields, which results in better trade agreements for us. And as we're looking for new trading partners, this is the type of programs that we'll be working on even further.
Thank you. Minister, I hear this a lot from stakeholders, so my question is, will Canada renew its commitment to the Global Fund during the upcoming replenishment period, and how much does the department have earmarked for this?
Look, the Global Fund does a lot of great work. It's saving thousands, if not millions, of lives. It's bringing people out of poverty. It's worked immensely great at reducing HIV and as well as tuberculosis, malaria, and other disease. So it's a great fund. I think as the budget is coming out very shortly, we'll see, and our Prime Minister will make that commitment shortly. So I don't want to foreshadow anything, but we have a lot of great appreciation for the work that Global Fund has been doing in the past, and we'll continue to work with them in the future.
Thank you very much. My time is just about up, so
Yes.
I'll cede the rest.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will next go to MP Anita Vandelbeld, who is joining us virtually. Go ahead. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and I want to welcome you back to this committee. And thank you so much for the leadership you've shown in the past months, especially in leading for Canada to lead on a more peaceful, more secure, more equitable world. And on that, I'll pick up on something you said in your opening remarks about Canadian values, and that there's now more competition in terms of the narrative. There are illiberal values that are being backed by certain nation states. The battle really between authoritarianism and democracy is really what underpins our geopolitical reality right now. And Canada has a very strong history of supporting democracy, supporting human rights defenders, and making sure that rule of law and stability are all over the world. And I would just like to ask you at this very crucial moment, what Canada is doing in terms of democracy promotion. We've seen cuts from a number of countries, in particular the National Endowment for Democracy in the United States, which has caused the end of the world movement for democracy. And also we've seen other areas where they're stepping up. So a recent all-party democracy caucus meeting last week, where we had the European Commissioner for Democracy, they said that Europe is creating a center for democratic resilience and would love to have Canada be a partner in those kinds of things. So if you could maybe give us an overview about inclusive democratic governance and how we're promoting the values of democracy and freedom globally.
Sure. Thank you, Anna, and I really commend you and your passion in this regards. You're very right. There is a rising authoritarianism and the misuse of technology to undermine democratic systems. This is something we spoke about many times in ministerial meetings around the globe, and we have to do more for that. We are working with partners to advance media freedom, civil society, human rights, and to address the threats threats against democratic governance. In the past budgets of 2023-24, I think $376 million was funded for inclusive governance programming. That's about 7% of our international assistance budget. And when it comes to overall, I think there's about 650 projects yearly supporting civil society groups to advance inclusive governance, human rights, equality, and peace. These include Journalists for Human Rights, Equitas, and many others. So we'll continue doing that. I think I could say when we met with our G7 ministerial, developmental ministerial, the commitment from most of our counterparts was very strong in this regards, and we'll continue to do that work. It's a very imperative. Some governments in my tours have actually asked for assistance in order to strengthen their governance systems, particularly on oversight and how to build their structures. And we continue to do many of that work bilaterally as well as multilaterally, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you very much, Minister. And we know this is a significant priority. The other question I wanted to ask you about is the FIAP, the Feminist International Assistance Policy. We know that when women are included, not just as beneficiaries of aid, but when they're included in the design, the implementation, from the very beginning of development programs, we see better outcomes. And I know that Canada has been a leader in the world. In fact, there are other countries that are following us on feminist foreign policies and feminist assistance policies. And I would just wonder, what is the current commitment and state of the Feminist International Assistance Policy?
Great. No, thank you. Look, we all know, and I said it in my speech as well, when women and girls do better, we do better. It's not just the right thing to do, it's a smart thing to do. We discussed this as well at our G7 development ministerial as well, that we need to strengthen those. It makes economic sense. It makes sense for a lot of other programs. And to have that participation of women in the agenda itself, in the way we fund our programming and the way we implement that programming, makes it even better. I think we've done that as a government here in Canada, and we're doing that in our programs that are funding that we're funding globally. But the world is changing, so we have to push hard to maintain that. We're seeing a lot of drawback. We're seeing a lot of pushback from many. Some are okay with some words and not the other. We're being creative and doing whatever we can to make sure the funding to help young women and girls, whether it's sexual reproductive health, whether it's participation in the workforce, or whether it's sustained development in their regions, we're doing whatever we can, and we'll continue to do that going forward.
And I'm very pleased to hear you talk about the sexual and reproductive health and rights. We know around the world this is something that is being, that we're losing. Women are losing those rights. And I just want to, with your 10 seconds, reaffirm that commitment to SRHR.
Yes, there's a very firm commitment and a very strong commitment. I've seen firsthand the benefits of a lot of these marginalized women and young, very, very young girls, and how a little bit can make a big difference in their lives, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you very much. We'll next go to MP Duceppe. Vous avez 6 minutes.
Merci. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Minister. All good? Thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Since Mr. Carney has become Prime Minister, we see that there's an intent to link international aid with economic policies. You said so in your opening remarks. We agree the fact that there should be mutual economic benefits. It can justify international aid in front of our citizens. But a lot of people fear that international aid may be weaponized. How can your department ensure that does not happen?
Thank you. Great question. The goal is to make sure it's never weaponized. The point is that as the landscape of development world is changing, there's almost a 24 to 30% reduction in aid development in Germany and France, and massive amounts in the U.S. This is a large void that Canada or other countries cannot fulfill on their own. So two things are probably happening. One is that we're trying to get more of private capital to there's trillions around the world that might be hesitant, but we need to get them and get the right vehicles and tools through our international financial institutions, development banks, FinDev, others, to help contribute. And the other is how we focus as Canada. I think traditionally we were able to sprinkle a little in a lot of buckets to help a lot of programs because we had the support of a lot of these large countries that were contributing to the international development world. When we don't, I think we have to focus more on how we can concentrate. And one of the ways when we concentrate on areas where we are doing trade and we have synergies is we can get the private capital to contribute more. We can concentrate and create a great brand and reputation for that region.
Justement, vous en faites pas. Je veux dire, l'aide internationale,
International aid around the world, in fact, is seeing a drop in investment, especially from large countries. In 1970, UN asked Canada to ensure that international aid is around 0.7 of the GDP. We are very far from that today, especially when you look at the fact that large countries like the USA have cut funding for US aid. Does Canada have a plan to reach that 0.7% goal? If so, how? And if not, why is there no plan?
We are actually one of the largest donors per capita in the world. In fact, even without a per capita basis, Canada is, I believe, 7th in the world in terms of ODA and development. We punch above our weight in almost every single category. We are also one of the ones now praised by our counterparts, whether it's the G7, G20, or OECD countries that commend us for maintaining our strong commitment to development and humanitarian assistance. So I would proudly say that we actually get commended for keeping that. Yes, the climate has changed quite a bit. Others have pulled back. We have been strong in our commitment to maintain ODA. And
Monsieur le ministre, excusez-moi, la question.
Sorry, Mr. Minister. That was not my question. I'm not asking a question for you to pat yourself on the back. I'm asking whether Canada has a plan to reach the 0.7%, yes or no. If so, how? If not, why not?
Very honest, I think with the financial situation and our global stresses in terms of our trade, to maintain what we have is a strength, and we should pride ourselves as Canadians that we are pushing above our weight. And I think based on that, I'll leave it there.
Mr. Minister, there are many small international aid organizations. For example, in my riding, there is one that has been around since 1979. It has had projects around the world that made real impacts. And in the Lac-Saint-Jean area, because there are people from Lac-Saint-Jean who are part of that project, they have partners. They focused on countries like Senegal and Benin and Ecuador. Education programs, as well as projects for global citizenship, a huge amount of projects. And here, I will give you some numbers, Mr. Minister. The federal government gave them 630,000 or so in 2020, and then that was cut to 500,000 or so. And now it's only down to $5,000. And so it's becoming costly for the organization. For a long time, these small organizations have been sounding the alarm because they do not have access to federal funding. When it comes to accountability, these organizations are probably in a better position to spend money. So that's my first question. And two, are you planning to do something to reestablish proper funding for organizations like this?
As to that particular organization funding, I think GAC has a rigorous process. They vet those, and I'll let them, maybe offline, we'll try to get you that answer. 25% of our aid goes to Canadian NGOs that are doing work across the globe, and we're trying to make it even more simpler for the application process so that they can have a simplified way while maintaining the proper governance and accountability of our funding.
Thank you very much. We'll now start the second round of questions, beginning with MP Rood again. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, since 2015, Canada has sent $108.9 million in aid to China. What precise objectives justified this spend, and what measurable outcomes were achieved for Canadians and for human rights on the ground?
Look, Canada doesn't give any bilateral funding directly to the state of China or the government of China. The work that we do is for civil society work, for human rights, for gender, and for climate initiatives to make the area a bit more climate resilient. Most of the work, that funding is done through multilaterals. So as we contribute to the Red Cross, Oxfam, other UN organizations, they have smaller percentages that go into China, and those are those. The only bilateral ones are the ones that I particularly said, and they're mostly for increasing human rights or strengthening the organizations that are working in those regards.
Minister, your May 6th briefing note says specifically that 39% of China aid, and I quote, went directly to Chinese recipients. So who exactly received these funds, for what projects, and how were they vetted for links to the Chinese state, the People's Liberation Army, or United Front entities?
I can with certainty say none of them are given to the government of China or any of their organizations. These are only for civil society funds. I can give you that in 1 second. I think it was 14.6 million that was in multilateral funding from organizations which Canada contributes that have an active role in China. That is pretty much the only multilateral funding. I can say that the previous government before us and the Conservatives gave 360 million over their tenure to China, including directly to some funds to the state. I think ours has been a very small level, and it's been only for civil society, human rights groups, and climate groups, NGOs that are working on climate, and they've only been bilateral with those civil society groups, nothing with the state itself.
Minister, but the briefing note is contrary to that. It says it was given directly to Chinese recipients. So perhaps then could I ask that you table to this committee a full project list of projects since 2015, including their budgets, implementers, deliverables, audits, and independent evaluations, please?
Would be happy to do so.
Thank you very much. The briefing note also cites OECD eligibility as justification for funding China. Does the OECD eligibility override Canadian foreign policy priorities, national security risk, and values considerations? And what are those trade-off decisions documented? Where are those trade-off decisions documented, and who signs off?
Like I said, we do not give any funding to China itself, the government of China. The funding that goes to, and I can actually have them in front of me, I think is the Canada Fund for Local Initiatives, which gets about $880,000, which helps small contributions to local grassroots initiatives that work on inclusive government, human rights, gender equality, peace and security. We have a very small program for Canada-China Scholars Exchange Program. It's about $200,000, helps build cultural understanding between the two. It's been operated for over 50 years under consecutive Liberal and Conservative governments. And the last one would be the China Council for International Cooperation in Environment and Development. It's an international advisory body that provides support to China in environmental and sustainable development policies. So that's how we do our work. We don't give any contributions.
So where are they documented, and are you the one who signs off on these then?
They're probably all well below my threshold of signing off on those, but they're global affairs officials that sign off on these.
Minister, the department says that no, and I quote, direct bilateral assistance to Chinese state authorities since 2013, but aid flowed via multilateral agencies such as World Bank and, I quote, non-state partners. So what safeguards prevent pass-through funding from indirectly supporting state organs or entities under Canadian sanctions?
So I don't think there's any sanctions in that regards, but they're mostly multilateral development banks. They contribute. There are also contributions to the Green Climate Fund. The sectors that they're working on are in energy, transport, and storage of the energy, and environmental protection. So those are the two areas that some of these multilateral development banks have been funding, including places like China. And I think Canada's share of the multilateral is about $12.1 million.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will next go to MP Mona Fortier. You have 5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you for being here with us today, Mr. Minister and Mr. Secretary of State. Can you maybe go back in time a bit and go back to 2005 to talk about the government's contribution, if that is not too much to ask, so that you can give us that overview? When during the Harper government, can you talk about the investments then to give us this comparative analysis? We know that the government is investing billions of dollars in international aid. We also know that we have a concrete role when it comes to working with NGOs. They are doing important work on the ground. My question is similar to the question from Mr. Giuseppe. In my writing, there are many headquarters, organizations such as Oxfam and CUSO, so on and so forth. If I name all of them, we'll be here all day. So there is a concrete role. So how do you decide how you work with these organizations? You're talking about modernization and Canada's modernized role. In that, how can we continue to work with NGOs?
And look, this is I would always call it a nonpartisan file. This is a file of development, humanitarian assistance, and I think I've spoken to all my counterparts and critics, and everyone agrees that we should all focus on making the lives of those that are most in need better. And it's not partisan in that nature, but we do have accountability and other issues that we always have to maintain, and that's where Parliament plays an important role. When it comes to small NGOs or Canadian NGOs, we do a lot of work with them, a lot of funding for them. It does, I have been told that it's a little onerous sometimes for smaller organizations to apply. The accountability, they're a bit smaller. But I will proudly say I think 25% of their funding goes to them. Sometimes the narrative in terms of why multilaterals get more funding or greater funding, and we would love to give more Canadian NGOs funding, is they just have the infrastructure on the ground. They're able to rapidly respond much easier. We get more dollar bang for our buck in terms of, if I may speak candidly, from Canada because they have the ability to be there. They have the infrastructure. So setting up shop in a new place all at once is harder. But Canada has a good amount of programs. In Quebec, Desjardins is one of the global amazing organizations doing a lot of NGO work. I've seen their work in West Africa, in Latin America, and they've been doing a great job, and we'll continue to find more ways to get more Canadian participation.
Justement, Desjardins célébrait 125.
Desjardins is celebrating 125 years of work in our country and around the world. So I'm happy that you have mentioned Desjardins and their great work. We have talked about NGOs, but now let's talk about the private sector. You said that the private sector may and can have a bigger role in Canada's approach. Can you give us concrete examples on what is happening right now that is making a difference?
Look, this has been a priority in the G7 amongst the leaders themselves. Prime Minister Carney committed to $391 million for innovative finance to catalyze private capital towards economic growth. There's another $50 million given to a program called Scaled. It's to address the barriers that private sector was facing in terms of investment in developing countries, to simplify and standardize the blended finance structures so that our sustainable development goals are achieved and the international development banks have the tools and means. When I hosted the G7 Development Ministerial, we hosted a reception. Expectations were maybe for 50 of these funds and their participants to come. Over 100 came, 115. These included philanthropic groups like the Rockefeller, the Ford Foundation, to large asset managers like BlackRock, Brookfield, Macquarie, to state banks like state development funds like the Austrian Development Bank, the Qataris Development Bank, and many, many others. This showed a huge appetite that they want to give and put money in. They're usually looking for stability in terms of currency, governance, how do they get their money, is it secured? They're willing to do concessional financing as well, and a lot of these foundations particularly, but we have to give them the foundations of that, and that's why that's where a small contribution goes a long ways. If we capitalize a bank in terms of their reserves, or we give them the structures on how they can register or do a blended finance where the private corporations have their money a little bit more safe. We take the risk. They're more than willing to participate, and it's been a game changer in that regards.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Député Duceppe. Vous avez 2 minutes et demie.
Mr. Duceppe, you have 2.5 minutes. In the past 2 years, I was able to go to Rwanda, Cameroon, and Kenya. What we hear in Africa from NGOs and from defense of human rights groups is that Canada is disengaging. That's what we are hearing on the ground. And we are seeing growing presence of China and of Russia in Africa. It seems like they are filling a vacuum. The government's response has been the Africa strategy that was tabled a few days before the election. A lot of people feel it's a failed strategy, an unserious one that has only 18 pages, that does not understand the gravity of the issue. Do you have a more effective strategy in the works so that Canada can come back and help these organizations that work in Africa that feel that Canada is not being disengaged? And I'm talking as a Quebec sovereigntist.
Look, when it comes to Africa, I think it's one of the largest, if not the largest recipient of our development aid. Over $3.2 billion, 44% of our ODA goes to Africa, so it's a large recipient. When you talk about a vacuum, I think if there's a vacuum, it's probably USAID's. The fact that the U.S. is going out and leaving that development world where countries like China and others are.
Pardon, Monsieur le Secrétaire d'État.
Excuse me. I'm not making this up. People have told me. I'm not pulling this out of nowhere. I have met many organizations on the ground who have told me that, yes, there is Canadian presence, but when I talk to ambassadors, I'm being told the same thing. I'm not inventing anything. When we need to solve a problem, we need to start by recognizing that there is a problem. And I want to work with the government. If the government truly wants to refill that vacuum, don't you think there is a problem? Do you have no tools to tackle that issue because you say there's no problem?
To tackle the vacuum created by the U.S. or others that have exited is not something that Canada on its own can do. It's just a massive pool. It's $60 to $80 billion. It's 25 to 30% of the aid. That's not something that Canada on its own, but that's where private financing, blended finance, and others, we will be able to do it. I met with the African Union Commissioner and at the African Union as well. Some of the opportunities is they've now recognized that they have to build some of their structures, especially when it comes to health themselves, so they're not reliant on it. I was able in my first and second trip, which was both to Africa, whether it was Ghana, Tanzania, Ethiopia, or South Africa, see firsthand our programs, and I think our programs are very strong. Again, I think the proof is in the pudding. We are 44% of our ODA, our development assistance, is to Africa, and now, if anything, we're trying to do more to work with them, as they are kind of they have 30% of the world's critical minerals,
we'll do
60% of the solar energy, and 25% of the biodiversity. So
Thank
we
you.
will continue to engage with them.
Thank you very much for that. We will next go to MP Rood. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, you say that no money goes to the Chinese state, but Global Affairs paid $1.1 million in educational grants to Chinese universities and colleges. And of course, Chinese colleges and universities are linked to the state, and I can't for the life of me think why we're giving money when money is supposed to be for impoverished people, people living in poverty, and the only people in China who can afford to go to school are those from the wealthier families. So, Minister, I was wondering if you could table with the committee which institutions, what programs received the funds, what steps were taken to prevent the misuse of Canadian funding, and were assurances in place that this funding was not used for furthering educational oppression by the Chinese state.
I can defer to my deputy if he can answer those and any particular questions in that regards.
So I don't have the exact details on that, but we can absolutely bring forward to the committee, as I think was suggested over the past 20 years, the support that has gone to my guess is it's probably educational exchanges, and it's potentially through IDRC as well, but we can bring that forward to the committee.
Thank you very much. We'd appreciate that if you could bring that to the committee. Minister, going forward, will you suspend new disbursements to Chinese recipients and other hostile state actors pending a full risk review and public audit? Will you be implementing additional partner vetting, transparency and disclosure, human rights, unconditionality, and intellectual property safeguards as conditions on aid disbursements?
Look, I think that's already Global Affairs Canada, when they fund and review any of these grants, have a very rigorous process in terms of vetting those programs, and they have a strict criteria to adhere to. So I'm pretty confident that those measures are already in place, and I'll continue to maintain that we ensure that no funding is going to anyone that is suppressing anyone's rights or infringing on Canadian copyright laws or anything that's detrimental to Canada or its existence.
Thank you. Minister, the $645 million for Canada's international climate finance and biodiversity programs will end on March 31st of 2026. Would you like to comment or commit, to asking your government for fiscal responsibility that prioritizes Canadians and not seek the continuation of this program?
Look, we are going through a budget that's going to come out on November 4th. There is a comprehensive review happening, expenditure review happening. Canada has a very strong commitment to climate and biodiversity. I don't see us exiting that in any which way, but there will be always reviews and tweaks to programs as we've seen how efficient or effective they are, where they're needed, how they're needed, what are the priorities, and based on that we will and we always consult Canadians and make sure that the voice of Canadians is heard, and we do program that is appropriate for Canadian values and Canadian interests.
Thank you. The $15.5 million for climate change action for gender-sensitive resilience will end on November 30th of 2025. Can you commit to asking your government for fiscal responsibility that prioritizes Canadians and not seek the continuation of this program as well?
Like I said, I will review all programs as they come up for review and as other program funding requests come in, and we always continue to look at them, the merits, the success, how well they've done in terms of results, and based on that, we'll make our decisions.
On what criteria does the department deem a nation hostile or high risk for Canadian aid? So beyond China, what other states fall into this category? How is due diligence applied in determining if aid funding will be misappropriated or not?
Look, the best example would be probably Afghanistan. I think Afghanistan, where Canada does not share values with the governments. But remember, when we're doing aid in developing nations, there's many, many countries we don't agree with everything that the values of those countries. Or our goal is to help build some values, whether it's through our democratic institutions, whether it's to gender rights and women's rights, whether it's to create a better education system. We help almost 100+ million students around the world through our many of our funding
Thank you,
initiatives.
Minister. I just have one final question. If projects fail to meet governance, transparency, or human rights benchmarks, what clawback mechanisms exist? Has funding been recovered, suspended, or reprogrammed since 2015? And to which nations and why?
Very brief response.
The process is very rigorous, and I will let our department answer those, and maybe we can table those afterwards.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll go to MP Rob Oliphant. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Secretary, and thank you, officials, for being here and for the work you do on behalf of Canadians all the time. I am tracking the hurricane Melissa, which will land momentarily, probably level 5 hurricane, affecting Jamaica and probably Haiti and Cuba as well. This is something I'm glad you are tracking it, and I hope Canadian response is strong in the aftermath. But I want to focus less on a natural disaster and a little bit more on human-made disasters. And I had a meeting earlier or last week with the president of the International Committee of the Red Cross, and talked about the blatant disregard for the rules of war and international humanitarian law, and the engagement of states in breaking those laws, and then the aftermath that comes afterwards. So whether it's Russia in Ukraine, allegedly Israel in Palestine and Gaza, we have a disaster where the rules of law under the Geneva Conventions and other international humanitarian law are not being followed, and we will have to pay a bill. And so how can the department and you work towards engagement on international law to ensure that Canadians aren't footing a bill later for human-made disasters because people have not followed international humanitarian law?
A very good question, Parliamentary Secretary. We all know the effects of war and the breach of many international laws in Ukraine or in Gaza by Israel or whether it's Russia. This is obviously the purview of Minister Anand, and in terms of enforcing international law or addressing those matters. In terms of the effects that come to me, or in terms of the international development and the humanitarian assistance, and I can't agree with you more. Particularly in Gaza, the situation has been very dire. The way in which aid was given was very horrific. The loss of lives, daily updates, as you probably saw as well, were almost 20 to 30 deaths every morning, and it's numbing to see those where people are dying just seeking aid and being shot at. The accessibility was diminished significantly, where there used to be 400 places where you get aid down to 4. You can just imagine a population of 2+ million people getting aid from only 4 distribution points. That's 500,000 per, not effective, not correct, and in no ways based on international standards. So we must do more to avoid this. That is a great example of a really preventable famine, a very preventable humanitarian crisis. And I think Minister Anand, along with her counterparts globally, has been working very hard and very strongly to prevent that, to sanction many individuals, to create sanctions against those that are responsible, and to really demand respect from them to adhere to international law. And the Prime Minister has also been very clear on the role of the ICJ and the International
I'm trying to push us all upstream so we don't have crises later, so I want us all to work together on that. Second issue I'd like to raise is pushing upstream. I want to talk about the International Development Research Center, the IDRC, which I think is a preeminent world-class institution that is providing research so that we put our aid in the best places possible and is building research capacity around the world. I just want to be assured that the IDRC will be on your radar as we go through budget discussions, because I think it is providing the tools to go upstream to stop some of the issues later. And any comments on that?
Sure. I mean, I call it our secret weapon. I think IDRC is one of Canada's best investments. It does amazing work, whether it's creating climate-resilient potatoes in Philippines, which is not only increasing the yields, but also putting people through school. Families that otherwise couldn't even afford their feeding themselves now are getting larger yields because of the work that IDRC has worked with in terms of agriculture. So it will continue to maintain, I think, the support that is necessary. It is one of Canada's paramount institutes.
No, my time's done.
Yes, just about.
God, it
yes.
flies when you're having fun.
Thank you. We'll start the last round. It's a lightning round where we will have 3 members with 3 minutes each, beginning with MP Cronus. You have 3 minutes.
So much for being here today. You spoke about a realignment towards mutually beneficial programs, so there's a return in investment. In your words, bang for Canadian buck, and things like investment in programs around rice in Vietnam, leading to lower prices on rice here in Canada. I'm just wondering how you measure that.
Look, when it comes to international development, I think those measurables are long-term. So these are ways that we support a nation that we have good ties with, or we want to potentially have better relationships with. Vietnam being one of the areas in the Indo-Pacific that we want to increase ties. It's a large trading partner for Canada as well, and it's an emerging market that is going to be even a more increased trading partner. So in order, if we help this is kind of the soft diplomacy we use. If we're able to help develop their agriculture processes, help develop their education, their women's and girls programs, I think the relationship to have a strong supply of agricultural products going both ways, it increases. And we've seen the increase in our trade with Vietnam in the particular program you asked.
So thanks for that. But you did speak about ROI. You spoke about bang for your buck. And I'm just wondering what that looks like structurally. Do you have people doing regression analysis? Is there a place Canadians can go to see how these things impact our prices? Or is it really just something where we are hoping and we have good feelings from it? And is this a vibes program? Or is there actual data that Canadians can look to be able to see the return that you're talking about?
Absolutely. I think the data is you'll see trade relationships increase, trading back and forth increase. You'll see increase in Canadian development.
See that increase.
You're more than welcome to see. I think Canada's trade relationships with those countries. You're more than welcome to see those. I think you'll see a steady increase in terms of where we've given development in dollars, and
so just
where it
because
hasn't
we
been
have
effective,
a limited,
we're
just a limited amount of time in
Sure.
this lightning round, I just want to ask you one more question. You talked about getting private capital to contribute more, and you talked about, I think, a $391 million fund, and you talked about Rockefeller foundations, and I also noticed that you included BlackRock in that list. And I'm wondering, in terms of this fund, can you say how much of that $391 million Canadian government fund will go to for-profit corporations to increase in this sort of vibey feelings way international development?
A brief response.
So it's not a vibey feeling way. It's to support the banks. None of that money goes to private companies. It goes to our international development banks, the African Development Bank, the Inter-America Development Bank. No, BlackRock would contribute to a program. So they haven't yet. They came to participate to see how they can. So say there's a port being done that's being funded by the Caribbean Development Bank. Canada will contribute the structure of that financing, and private private capital is able to contribute to that loan program that the African Development Bank or the Caribbean Development Bank would make for that port.
Thank you very much. Next, we have MP Bill Blair. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Secretary. It's very good to see you here. And I'm very familiar with all of the work that you have been doing as a member of Parliament and in your community for many years. I think it uniquely positions you to be successful in your current role. I would like to, if I may, talk a little bit about this new priority that you're advancing about mutual economic prosperity and trade facilitation. And I think that I think for many years, our approach has not been as transactional as perhaps China or the United States or other countries, but I think looking at how our significant contributions to international development can facilitate trade is something worthwhile. And for example, last year, nearly $2 billion in loans to the Ukraine to stabilize their economy. And we see right now the Prime Minister is in Southeast Asia in conversations with ASEAN and others. Perhaps you could share with us a little bit your thoughts on how we might facilitate our significant contributions to humanitarian aid, but how it also can facilitate improved trade relationships with those developing countries.
Sure. I think it looked as many ways. I'll give you simple examples that I saw firsthand. If it's a coffee growing region in, say, Ethiopia or others where Canadians buy coffee, if we are able to assist farmers increasing their yields by stumping or pruning, they call it stumping there, we give assistance. We help them with water wells, solar-powered wells, etc. We help their women and girls in that region. We maintain for our coffee companies a safe and sustainable and resilient supply chain going forward, so they don't have to worry about instability in those regions. When they choose who to supply their coffee to, they're going to be more keen on supplying to those that have that are like Canada, because Canada has assisted them in that regards. Another flip side would be, I went to Tanzania. Barrick Gold is the largest taxpayer in the country of Tanzania. If we are to put development in a region where that extraction and mining work is being done, the ability to have Barrick Gold or other resource sectors also contribute to that development, because they will want to, if I'm going to do vocational training for women and girls in, say, heavy equipment operating, the best would be that they get a steady supply of great workers that will work on their plants, and instead of importing them or bringing them from somewhere else. This is the type of stuff where we can coordinate the development. Similarly, lastly, I would say is infrastructure. Many Canadian companies are great infrastructure development arms around the globe. If we can do some of the pre-work in terms of the research on, say, a train or a subway line or a highway corridor to help facilitate supply chains or the movement of people, then when our bids go in for that infrastructure to build the subway, build the highway, build the rail car, we have an upper hand. We have a better ability to navigate that market. So these are the type of ways that I'm trying to help facilitate our trade through the development work that we do.
Thank you very much. Next, we have MP Duceppe. Vous avez 3 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Minister, we all support inclusion and diversity. We also have to understand that it's taxpayer dollars that fund these programs. Not long ago, a program was created called the mining operations that take into consideration gender specificities for the future in Ukraine. It also has a working group on gender equality in order to promote anti-mining policies that transforms gender. It's probably the most Justin Trudeau program ever. Can you tell me, what does that mean? What do you mean demining activities that take into consideration gender specificities?
commitment to gender equality, and I'm glad you asked me that question. Look, a lot of these, and I without particulars of that program, I've met with some of these anti-mining, demining corporations, corporate NGOs that have been worked. They've actually found that women that engage in this get more empowered, are actually much more effective at the demining with that respects. And so if we're able to train and empower women into fields they otherwise are not, that is better. I don't know if you're talking about demining in terms of bomb demining, or if you're talking about actually mining in terms of the mineral extraction world. In that regards as well, otherwise it becomes a singular male employment sector only. If we can empower women.
Monsieur le secrétaire d'État,
Mr. Secretary of State, the idea of demining a minefield shouldn't just be demining a minefield. The idea is to make sure that people don't die. I don't see how gender specificity criteria can improve the program. I believe that Ukrainians of all genders just want to make sure that no one dies and that no one steps on mines. Can you talk about these programs? Will you continue creating these kind of programs in your new functions, or will the vision of your department change?
And in particular, the men are at war. There's actually a big lacking of men to do a lot of these jobs. And if we can get the women that are there to have those skills, particularly these, and I actually, in this regards, I have met the organizations doing that work. They have said that factually, the women have actually done a better job at demining. Their natural intrinsic nature to demine is much more effective. They also are much better when they come at home. They are respected by their peers, and it's doing two things at one time. I think it's demining. It's getting more people in the field of demining, which otherwise would not. If it helps improve their gender equality and employment equality in their area, I think it's a win-win-win situation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your appearance today before the committee, Minister, as well as thank you to the officials. This concludes the first half of our meeting, and therefore the meeting is suspended.